This series of videos is intended to provide the sport of obedience with a clear explanation of the individual obedience exercises, procedures, and scoring. It is not intended to be the only resource, and participants in the sport are encouraged to attend judges' panel discussions, view AKC webinars, and above all, read the regulations. This is not an AKC product. It is based on the obedience regulations and shares the interpretations of many AKC judges. KPS takes full responsibility for its content. In order to understand the regulations, they must be studied. While the regulations are not particularly entertaining, they provide much of the information that it takes to be successful in the sport. This video will explain the novice recall exercise. The principal features of this exercise are that the dogs stay where left until called by the handler, and that the dog responds promptly to the handler's command or signal to come. The recall is a fundamental exercise in obedience, and the regulations related to the recall are continuously referenced through the rest of obedience classes. Chapter 3, Section 3 tells us that there are 30 points available in this exercise.
The team must retain more than 50% of those points, in this case 15.5 points, in order to qualify.
The judge's orders for the recall exercise are leave your dog, call your dog, and finish. The judge may use signals for any of these orders in lieu of a verbal order. This is to avoid the dog leaving on the judge's verbal order. The judge is not wrong for using either. It is simply a personal preference. The handler should watch the judge during prior performances in order to mark which the judge is going to use. The handler should watch the judge for his or her signal so that they know when to call their dog. We will watch the entire exercise and then break it down into its components.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Leave your dog.
Wait. Winston, come.
Finish. Exercise finished.
The novice recall exercise follows the novice heel-free exercise and will begin where indicated by the judge. The handler will begin the exercise at a spot designated by the judge. The judge may have placed chalk or a tape mark on the floor surface. If so, the handler should position themselves behind the mark rather than in front of it. The mark is to ensure that every handler leaves their dog in the same location. The judge will ask if the handler is ready. On an affirmative answer, the judge will give the first order, leave your dog.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Leave your dog.
Wait.
The handler will then walk to the other end of the ring. The judge may have placed a mark where he or she wishes you to stand. The handler should stand behind this mark. If no mark is present, the handler should go to the end of the ring, turn, and face their dog. The handler should be cautious to leave enough room for the dog to get behind the handler on the finish. The handler is not at any time to back away from the dog. Backing away from the dog is considered an additional signal to stay. Once in position, the handler will stand with their hands and arms held naturally at their sides. The handler should stand with their feet placed normally for standing. Spreading the feet or legs could be considered an aid to the dog. The judge will give an order or signal for the handler to call the dog. The regulations provide one opportunity to call the dog and qualify in this class. This is true in all obedience classes with the exception of beginner novice.
Finish. Exercise finished.
On the judge's order, the handler will give a command or signal for the dog to come. The handler may use the dog's name in the command, but the dog must not leave on its name. This is considered anticipation. Should the handler wish to use the dog's name and a command, they should develop the practice of calling the two closely together. On the command, the dog will leave its place and come directly at a brisk trot or gallop. In order to qualify, the dog must come close enough to the handler that the handler can touch its head without excessive reaching, bending, or the handler having to move their feet. The dog is to sit straight in front and centered on the handler. On the judge's order, the handler will command the dog to finish. The dog will go smartly to heel position and sit straight at heel. The handler must leave from heel position and the dog must return to heel position. Heel position is described on the dog. Heel position is the area between the end of the dog's head and the top of the dog's withers or front shoulders. It is the handler's responsibility to place themselves in heel position before leaving the dog, and the dog's responsibility to return to heel position at the finish. The regulations provide a variety of do's and don'ts. When the regulations state that a dog or handler must do something, it means that failure to do that thing will result in a penalty. Likewise, if the regulations state that a dog or handler must not do something, then taking that action will result in a penalty. The following are actions and penalties that will result in a non-qualifying score. There may be others, and the judge makes the determination within the regulations. Number 1, leaving the place it was left. A dog cannot leave its place without receiving a non-qualifying score. The judge will determine whether the movement is enough for an NQ. A dog simply standing in place is not an NQ, but if it moves forward too far, it will be non-qualified. A dog that does not return to the handler close enough for them to touch the dog's head without excessive stretching or bending will be non-qualified. A handler that gives a second command to recall will receive a non-qualifying score. A handler that gives a second command to stay will receive a non-qualifying score. The following will result in a substantial deduction in points. A dog that stands or lies down where it was left. A dog that does not return at a trot or a gallop. A dog that anticipates a command, such as by auto-finishing, will receive a substantial deduction. A dog that fails to finish or does not sit in front or at heel will receive a substantial deduction. A handler that holds or gives an inappropriate signal will receive a substantial deduction. Other actions may also result in a substantial deduction if warranted by the judge in accordance with the regulations. Minor to substantial deduction, 1/2 to 2.5 points, will result if a dog fails to sit straight or is in front or behind of heel position. A dog that deviates from returning directly but does return. A dog that does not sit or finish promptly. A dog that touches the handler on returning, that sits between the handler's feet, or sits with a paw on the handler's foot. A dog that recalls yet walks rather than trotting or galloping will receive a penalty according to the severity. Walking halfway, for example, would warrant a lower penalty than walking all the way in. A handler that aids the dog with body language will receive a minor to substantial deduction. Once at the place where the dog is to be recalled, the handler is to stand in place without moving their feet or their hands to aid the dog. Judges consider almost any movement during the recall as unnecessary and will score it according to its severity. The handler should stand naturally and on the judge's order call or signal the dog to come. The dog is always required to come to the front position. The dog is always required to come close enough at the end of the recall for the handler to touch their head without excessive bending, stretching, or moving their feet. Handlers should carefully read Chapter 2 in order to ensure that they understand the requirements of signals, commands, and body language. We hope that this video has served to provide helpful information that leads to training and showing success. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe so that you can receive other videos as they are released.